You're listening to episode number 6 of the Queen of Your Castle podcast. I am so grateful that you are here. Today's episode is a good one. It is a good one. This is a great one. I love this episode. This one has a lot of food for thought. And as always, I give you an exercise at the end so that you can do some root pulling and do some story changing and really start moving the needle toward the place that you know that you want to be in your life. So grab your pen and your paper if you are not driving, because you are going to have some writing to do if you choose to at the end of this episode. And I hope that you enjoy it as much as I loved making it for you. Thank you for being here. Where would you take your life if you knew you could not fail? I get it. As a stepmom, mom, and entrepreneur, sometimes it can feel like what everyone else expects of you versus what you dream about for yourself are on opposite ends of the spectrum. As a woman, you're taught from a very young age what society thinks you're worth based on how you look, how you behave, and how much money you're allowed to bring in. But I'm here to show you that you can be the woman who has it all, and not just on the outside. I'm Brittany Lynch, and you are the queen of your castle. Hello, and welcome to episode number 6 of the Queen of Your Castle podcast. I am your host, Brittany Lynch. Thank you for being here. So last week we talked all about how you've probably been misled, and the path to peace is not through venting or by surrounding yourself with people who vent. I also mentioned last week in episode 5 that you have the power to choose a different story. Now, if you know me, then you know I'm a writer and I'm obsessed with story and storytelling. And it's for one simple but super powerful reason that I love story so much. So if you think back to, cave people, what did they do, right? They told stories around a fire. Legends, fairy tales, fables, like even religious texts are interpreted by telling stories. Our whole entire life is based in and conveyed by story. Movies, TV series, books, everything is based on story. Also, side note, why am I so obsessed with cave people lately? So today's episode is a tribute to story and all about how telling yourself a new story can instantly change your life. To illustrate what I mean, I will start with, you guessed it, a story. Once upon a time, there was a group of frogs, and the frogs were traveling through the woods, and 2 of them fell into a deep, dark pit. When the other frogs saw how deep the pit was, they told the 2 frogs that had fallen that they were as good as dead in this pit. The 2 frogs ignored these comments of the people or the frogs on top, and they tried to jump their way out of the pit with all of their might. Jump. The other frogs at the top kept telling them to stop. They said, you're as good as dead. Finally, one of the frogs listened to what the other frogs were saying, and he gave up. He fell down and sunk into the mud, and he died. Now the other frog continued to jump as hard as he could. Once again, the crowd of frogs at the top yelled at him to just stop the pain and die. They kept yelling, just give up already. But this little frog, he jumped even harder, and he finally made it out. And when he got out of the pit, the other frog said, did you not hear us? And the frog who got out explained to them that he had mud in his ears, and he thought that they were encouraging him and cheering him on the whole entire time. So what's the moral of the story? Well, our interpretations about what is going on around us is going to determine if we have the outcome that we want versus the outcome that we don't necessarily want. So what do a couple of frogs jumping out of a pit have to do with you and your life? This is a great question. A lot of stepmoms, moms, women, people people in general, a ton of people believe that there is some type of pit in their lives that they cannot jump out of. So whether it's in your business, in your relationship, in your family or stepfamily, in your finances, with your health, most people resign themselves to being the frog who listens to other people's judgments or bad advice and gives up on believing that they can jump out. And what are the consequences of this? When you believe that a circumstance of your life is a big black pit that you cannot jump out of, then guess what? You're right. You're right about that. If you tell yourself the story that an aspect of your life is horrible, that you'll forever be working at this dead-end job that doesn't pay you what you're worth, that stepfamily circumstances suck, that you'll never lose that last 20 pounds, whatever it is, whatever your pit is, if you believe that you can't change that, then 100% of the time, this is what will happen for you. Guaranteed. Whatever the problem is that you're having right now in your life, if you continue to believe it's a problem, then it'll forever be a problem. Or if you just think this is just the way it is and I can't change it, then you're right. Then you won't be able to change it. If you're just meeting me for the first time, then before I started Step Queen, where I work with stepmoms who want a positive mindset so they can feel valued, peaceful, respected, and confident, my prior career was as a registered nurse. One story that I used to hold on to that made me just miserable was the story that because I'd invested all of this time and money and energy into my nursing degree, that I had to keep working as an RN. So I worked in the ICU, I worked on a neurology unit, which PS, I credit my fascination with the brain from working on a neurology unit. I also worked in occupational health. I worked in mental health and addictions. At one point, I even tried squeezing my love for writing into the nursing profession. And I was writing 30 or 40 page reports for psychiatrists. But no matter which avenue that I took in nursing, it never, ever, ever felt like my place. And so for as many amazing people that I met along my way as a nurse and as many amazing experiences that I had and all of the immense amount of knowledge that I gained about humans and the human experience and pain and hurt and life and death, for me, working as a nurse was that pit for me that I didn't think I was going to be able to get out of. It didn't fit my personality. You know, I'm someone who values freedom and prefers not to take orders. It didn't fit my value system to always be pouring my energy into people who didn't want help or didn't want to change. It didn't fit my value system that I was working in a role that traditionally has been and continues to be occupied mainly by women. And not that part necessarily as much as the social and systemic implications of that and why that is. So for me, nursing didn't fit. And I know many people who love nursing, and I love nurses. This isn't a slight against nurses. Nurses are some of the most amazing people. But my story, it was my story about my past career. My story was that I was trapped there, that I should stay there. So I showed up on somebody else's time and I did work that didn't make me feel good inside. And I came home crying almost every single day. I was burnt out physically. I was burnt out emotionally. I was burnt out spiritually. I distanced myself from my family and on and on and on and on because I believed I was trapped. I believed that I had no choice. And I told myself the story that I couldn't get out of that pit. I wonder how much of this you can relate to. Is there something in your life, a pit that you're in, that you believe you will be stuck in forever? That because of XYZ reason or until XYZ date or until you have however many dollars in your bank account, that you believe you'll stay in that pit because it's what you're supposed to do or that's just the way that life is. The biggest myth that we buy into is that all happy stepmoms or all successful people or all the people that you look up to are somehow free of having bad things happen to them. Most people believe that people with good lives somehow just got lucky. But newsflash, the people that you look up to or aspire to be like have all fallen into a pit or 2 million in their lives. But they know something that many people, and maybe even you, have forgotten. They know that they have the choice to be the frog who gets sucked into the mud and gives up, or the frog that tells a different story and hears people cheering them on from the sidelines. Or the frog maybe that just learns how to cheer for their own damn selves. So the woman who has it all, and not just on the outside, she knows that falling into dark times and hard times is just a part of life. She knows that these pits are opportunities for growth and for expansion. Even if it hurts at the time, she leans into that hurt and feels the feelings and uses them to create a story and a life that suits her and serves her. And what you'll end up with when you adapt this mindset and learn to tell yourself a new story is that there's nothing in this world you can't have if you learn how to jump out of your pits. So I know a lot of people out there right now are probably saying, okay, Brittany, that's all well and good, you idealist, but my situation or my circumstances are different, right? I really am stuck in this place. I really am stuck here. Like maybe your partner's ex did this, or your stepkids did this, or your career is this way, or your career set in stone and you don't have a choice. Maybe you really truly believe that. But has there ever been a time in your life that you've known someone who has done a complete 180 in their own lives? Have you ever known a friend who's left an abusive relationship and ended up building a beautiful life? Have you ever known a relative who was down to their last dollar and turned around and became super mega successful? Have you ever known another stepmom or another friend who was ready to file for divorce, but ended up working things out and becoming one of the happiest people that you know? Have you ever known someone who quit smoking? Have you ever known an addict who got clean? So what does this say? What's that saying again? A smooth sea never made a skilled sailor. The things in your life that you think are hard are not hard. They're just things. They're just experiences. They're just circumstances. What makes them feel hard is the stories that you tell yourself about them. And it's okay to be sad. It's good to feel angry. It's good to feel confused for a while. It's okay to feel like you're in a pit. Falling into pits is part of life. But what I want you to do now is to try and get out of that pit. This isn't about ignoring your feelings. It's about deciphering what those feelings are telling you. What are those feelings telling you about the direction that they're trying to point you toward? Like, this is about leaning into this uncomfortable part of your story to pluck out what needs to change. So as always, here's an exercise for you to start the process of jumping out of whatever pit it is that you're in. So if you're not driving, go ahead and grab a pen and paper, pencil and paper, and follow along here. If you are driving, you can just do this in your head because it's a great exercise. And I think that you'll find that any part of your life can be improved by telling a different story. If you don't already follow me on Instagram, go and do that at The Step Queen and send me a DM about what you're pulling out here, okay? I'm really interested to see what you're pulling out. Also, I want to take a quick second to thank everyone who's left ratings and reviews so far on the podcast. And if you are loving what you've been hearing so far, please make sure to tap subscribe and drop me a 5-star rating and leave me a review. Thank you so much. So here's your super powerful exercise that you can do to start to tell a more empowering story. First, I want you to brainstorm a time or two in your life that you have survived something really hard. Something that at the time that you were going through it, you said, there's no way I'm going to survive this, or how am I ever going to survive this? So pull out a couple of those times that you thought you were not going to survive, but here you are surviving. Here you are surviving and listening to the Queen of Your Castle podcast. Like, you made it, right? You made it. So now you do know, in fact, you have proof sitting in front of you right now that you have in the past survived hard things. What I want you to do next is to brainstorm a few places in your life that you are currently feeling stuck. Where in your life are you currently feeling like the frog that fell into the pit? Is it in your business? Is it in your stepfamily? Is it in your health? Is it in your finances? It's super important to acknowledge these areas because you can't get at the roots if you don't know which weeds to pull, okay? So after you have your list of the pits that you have in your life, the pits that you've fallen into currently in your life, what I want you to do is rank those, okay? So if you have 4 of them, if you have 4 pits in your life right now, I want you to rank them from 1 to 4, with number 1 being the deepest, darkest pit, and number 4 being the one that's affecting you the least. Then after you have them ranked, take number 4, or the one that's affecting you the least right now, but still is a problem. And I would invite you to focus on this pit for the rest of this exercise or until you get out of that, okay? Why am I getting you to focus on the least one first? I will explain this, I promise, in another episode. But for now, just trust me. So here is the juicy part. Remember, I asked you to start this exercise by listing some hard times that you've already survived. I want you to go back to that part and look at some of the lessons that you learned from surviving that. And then I want you to take something that you learned from getting out of that pit and ask yourself how you can apply that to pit number 4, or whichever one that it is right now that you're working on. There's no wrong way to do this exercise, okay? The only wrong way to do this exercise is not to do it. So be gentle with yourself and just allow yourself to see what comes up for yourself when you realize that you have the power to tell yourself a different story, that you have survived hard things already, and that those things, those hard things that you have already survived, have prepared you for these things right here, right now in your experience. And you can do this, like whatever this means to you, whatever this pit is, you absolutely 1,000,000% can do this. Be the jumping frog, my queen. Be the jumping frog. Jump, jump, jump. Be the jumping frog. So here's an example of what this might look like, okay? So for me, a pit that I've jumped out of in my life is I was in an abusive relationship and I survived that. And I found the strength to leave it, even though there were times I did not think that I was going to ever be able to get out of that relationship. Now, one pit I'm in right now, this is a hypothetical, P.S., just say, for example's sake, say a pit that I'm in right now is that I'm having issues with my partner's ex. Maybe she's berating me or doing something that I perceive to be abusive, okay? So right now, this would feel like a pit, right? This would feel like I was trapped there. It would feel like I can't escape this. Well, what did I learn from the abusive relationship that I left? I learned that I'm worthy of love. I learned that people who have been abused can go on to abuse others, and that it was never about me in the first place. I learned that I have a choice as to whether I put myself in situations that may result in me getting abused. So now from doing this, now all of a sudden, I'm not the frog getting sucked into the mud. I'm now the frog who can jump out of the pit using the tools that I already have in my toolbox. I am telling myself an entirely different story about this set of circumstances. You see how easy this is, right? So what I want you to do is try this out for yourself. Go back and re-listen to this as many times as you need to in order to get this exercise down. And like I said, please send me a message on Instagram at The Step Queen and let me know what kinds of things that you are finding. What kinds of strengths are you finding in the pits that you have fallen into in the past? And how are you going to apply those to your present and your future? Every single experience that we have that tests us, that tests our strength, that tests our patience, that triggers us, this gives us an opportunity to grow and expand and evolve. every single person goes through hard times in life. It's what you choose to do. It's what you choose to do with those experiences that will set you apart and decide if you can be happy or not. Now, I'm gonna finish off here by telling you another story, okay? So weird, I know, another story. But so once upon a time, a daughter was complaining to her dad that her life was miserable and she did not know how she was going to make it. She was tired of fighting and tired of struggling all the time, and it just seemed as soon as one problem was solved, another one popped up. Her father was a chef, and he took her to the kitchen. He filled 3 pots with water and placed each one on the burner. Once the pots began to boil, he placed potatoes in one pot, eggs in the second pot, and coffee beans in the third pot. He then let them sit and boil without saying a word to his daughter. The daughter moaned, she was impatient, wondering what the heck he was doing. And after 20 minutes, he finally turned off the burners. He took the potatoes out of the pot and placed them in a bowl. He pulled the eggs out and placed them in a bowl. Then he ladled the coffee out and placed it in a cup. He turned to her and he said, daughter, how everyone starts a sentence, daughter, what do you see? And the daughter said, potatoes, eggs, and coffee. So he said to her, look closer and touch the potatoes. So she did, and she realized they were soft. Then he asked her to take an egg and break it. And after she pulled off the shell, she observed that the egg was a hard-boiled egg. And finally, he asked her to take a sip of the coffee. And the smell of the coffee brought a huge smile to her face because coffee is life. Dad, what does this mean? She asked. So her dad then explained that the potatoes, the eggs, and the coffee beans had each faced the same adversity, the boiling water. However, each one reacted differently. The potato went in strong, hard, and unrelenting, but in boiling water, it became soft and weak. The egg was fragile, with the thin outer shell protecting its liquid interior until it was put in the boiling water. Then the inside of the egg became hard. However, the ground coffee beans were unique. After they were exposed to the boiling water, they changed the water and created something new. Which one are you? He asked his daughter. So when something happens to you, when adversity knocks on your door, how do you respond? Are you a potato? Are you an egg? Or are you a coffee bean? Cheers to coffee. I hope this episode got your wheels turning and showed you just how powerful you are. I would invite you to take 30 seconds and tap subscribe to this podcast. When you subscribe to the podcast, then rest assured you will never miss an episode. And in no time, spinning your wheels will be a thing of the past. Thank you for listening and subscribing. And if you enjoyed this episode, it would mean the absolute world to me if after you subscribed, you jumped on over and left me a 5-star review, and better yet, a written review. I am on a mission to let every mom and stepmom know that you can create the life of your dreams. And I need your help to change the world. The world needs us. Thank you so much for subscribing and leaving me a 5-star review. I will see you next week, same time, same place. For more behind the scenes action and to get really up close and personal with me and our beautiful step family, jump on over to Instagram and follow me at The Step Queen. Don't be shy, send me a DM, tag me in your posts, tag me in your stories, let me know what you're up to and what about the podcast has been blowing your mind. I cannot wait to get to know you better, and Instagram is my jam. I love you so much. I love you so much. Make it rain, girlfriend.